Hello everyone, and welcome to the fifth in the series of Markup UK 2020 webinars, and the fourth on XProc 3.0. My name is Andrew Sales, and I'm one of the Markup UK organisers. I'll be hosting this webinar on dealing with zip documents in XProc 3, given by Erik Siegel. Before we begin, some housekeeping announcements. Please use the Q&A section to post questions. My co-hosts Ari and Geert will monitor these, and we will have some time at the end to put them to Erik. A quick reminder also that this webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available on our YouTube channel later today. See the links for this and previous sessions on our website, markupuk.org. This is the third seminar that Erik has kindly agreed to lead for us, and he will co-present the final one in the series, an XProc Q&A, with Achim Berntsen on the 30th of June. In case you missed his previous sessions, let me just say by way of introduction that Erik is one of the editors of the XProc 3 specification, so he knows the details of the technology extremely well. Over to you, Erik.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to share my screen now. And there we are. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, depending on the time zone you're in. Welcome back to the XProc webinar. In case you haven't done so, please pull the latest version of the Git repo that is for which the URL is down on this slide. I added a QA file in which I try to answer the most pressing questions that came up during the last two webinars. It's in the repo. What I'm going to do today is to show you how to work with zip files in XProc, which XProc is extremely well suited for. And we're going to do that based on a simple use case. It's roughly the same as what I presented on the unconference day of the XProc this year. So if you were there, it might be familiar to you. But I added a few bits and pieces here and there to make things more interesting. So let's first present you the use case. We have a zip file in which there is an image and a small HTML file. So it's a zip file of a static HTML file, HTML site. And it shows the old logo of XProc. But we want to change this because we also want to present a new logo. And what we need to do is to make another output. So we have to change the zip file. And what we need to do is to add a reference to the new logo to the HTML file. And of course, we have to add the new logo itself to the zip file. So how can you do this in XProc? The first thing you need to know is that XProc works with manifests. And we need manifests for two reasons. One, to see what's in a zip file, and another reason is to create a zip file, and we're going to see that in a few slides. Now, there is a step called parchive manifest, and you can feed it a zip file, and what comes out is the manifest of the zip file, and that looks like this. I will show you in a minute live. This is the archive manifest of the zip file for this demo, and please notice the href attributes for every entry in the zip file. They're built up of the URI of the zip file and / and then the URI of the file in the zip. And these hrefs are important, which you will see in a few minutes. So let's run this. Let's have a look at the code for this first, of course. Come on, yeah, here it is. So this is a 3.0 pipeline. It has an input called source, in which I, by default, so it's easy for me, say, please read input.zip, which is the zip file you just saw on the slides. And as you might notice, input.zip is not an XML file, it's a binary file. So as we already told you, XProc can also work with binary files. So what happens is this, what comes in here is fed into the source port of the archive manifest step, and what comes out of the archive manifest step is, well, the manifest. So does it even work? Let's run it. And as you can see, here is the archive manifest that I already showed you on the slides. It works. So back to the slides. The next thing we need to do is to change this manifest. And it might not be apparent why we need to do that, but it will be I will tell you that in a few slides. So what we need to do is to add a reference to the new logo to the manifest, so we can then later on use it to create a new zip file. And it looks like this. We add another C entry. The name attribute is the path of the file in the zip file. And in this case, the href attribute is the URI of the file as it is stored on disk. So we're going to do this. We're going to take the manifest we just created and change it in this way. How does that look in code? Like this. Here we have the archive manifest again, and then we have the p-insert step, which should be familiar to you if you were there on my first two webinars. And what we're going to do is we're going to, on the root element as a last child, we're going to add a C entry with the name of the file in the zip, and we're going to create an absolute URI to the Canava image, which is stored in the same directory as this pipeline. This is an attribute value template between curly braces, so the XPath inside will execute. Okay, does it work? Let's try. And there it is. As you can see, it created a nice C entry element with the URI of the file on disk. All right, so that was the first part. We need a changed manifest, and in a few seconds, few minutes, you will see why. Back to the slides. So what we then now need to do is we need to change the contents of the zip file. We need to change the HTML, and we need to add the new image. So the first thing we need to do for that is unarchive everything. We need to take all the files out of the zip file and inspect and work with them later. And for this, there is a p-unarchive step. And what flows out of the unarchive step, if you don't give it any filters, which I won't, are all the files in the zip file, and what's important, the base URI property of the file is equal to what you saw in the href attribute in the manifest. Okay, let's do that, and let's see how that looks in code. All right, I commented out the whole manifest thing just for now. So we're going to concentrate on the extraction of the zip file. Here's the unarchive step. You might wonder why I explicitly give it an input file, because it's the first step in the pipeline, and by implicit connection, it gets its input from the source port, from the primary input port of the step. But as soon as I uncomment the whole change manifest things, it is no longer the first step. So then we need to explicitly connect it to the source port, this port of the add new logo step. And you can see it here. The whole pipeline is called add new logo. So we say, please connect my input to the source port of the add new logo pipeline. So that's what happens. What flows out of the unarchive step are all the files in the archive. And just for now, this is debug code. I'm going to remove it later. I want to see what happened. So what I did, I do a P for each with loops over every file that flows in. And for every file, I create a new small document which says the base URI is this document property, and to be to show you the content type is this document property. Now, a small aside, what are document properties? XProc has the feature that a document flowing through the pipeline is not only the document itself, but it also has document properties. Or Akim told you already something about it in his talk about JSON. There are a few document properties which are for XProc, which are base URI and content type, and serialization is another one. But you can add properties to your own liking. You can ask for the values, etc. It's a map, and you can put virtually anything inside. So see it as metadata that travels with your document, and it can be quite useful if you have a very complex pipeline. But for now, I'm just going to ask for the two basic properties, which are base URI and content type, and there's a extension function based document property which gets the base URI, and the same function I use to request the content type. So what flows out here are two documents with a single doc element in it. That's not well formed, so I wrap this whole thing into the zip demo wrapper element to be able to show it to you. So let's run that. As you can see, we get a zip demo root element, and inside two doc elements, where you can see that we have a document with this base URI of content type text HTML, and the other base URI type image.ping. And please note that these base URIs are the same as the href attributes in the archive, as I told you. All right. Okay, so we now have all our files. We now need to change them. At least we need to change the HTML file. How does that work? So we have the on-archive files, and we push them through a step that changes the demo HTML file. What comes out of there is the demo HTML file changed and the PNG file unchanged. And what we do with the change, we add these pieces of HTML there. Now, how does that look in code? Here we are. We have an on-archive step again, and then we add a reference to the new logo. So what we do, we loop over all the files that come out here. If this file is the demo HTML file, so if the base URI ends with /demo HTML, for this simple case, in practice you will probably need maybe a bit more elaborate test there, but for now it works. Then I again use the p-insert step to insert this HTML into its body element in this case. So I don't match on /star, but I matched on the HTML body element here. The big question is, of course, what happens if the test fails, which it will for the PNG file. Well, in that case, the pif doesn't do anything. It just passes passes on what it finds on its input. So the PNG file is just passed on unchanged. To show you that this actually works, what I did here is again I do a p for each over each document that comes out. I check whether it's a text HTML document in this case. Sorry, whether it's not a text HTML document. In that case, I just say, okay, this is another type of document. This is the content type. And if it's a text HTML document, it will fall out of this pif unchanged, and it will be, and you should be able to see it in the output. So let's have a look. Here we are. We have our zip demo root element. We have the HTML element with the new markup inside, a new logo. And we have here the other document that flows out of this changing, and that is indeed the PNG file. So I think we're good. we are actually in the situation here where is what we wanted to do. So we now have the changed files. We have the Canava image on disk somewhere. So let's put a new zip file together. How does that work? So what we do, we archive the zip file, we change the demo HTML, we archive it, and during that we put in the Canava file. And what comes out of the parchive step is a zip file, and we store that zip file somewhere on disk. Now, how does the parchive step knows what it actually should do? Well, for that, it needs an archive. And so we have an archive, a manifest. So what we did, we took the manifest from the zip file, we added the reference to the logo, we feed that into the parchive step, so the parchive step knows what to do. And here it is, we have the archive step, the change manifest. And what the archive step does, it matches the documents in the manifest with the documents it finds on its source port by base URI property. And as we've seen, the base URI property is the same as what we have here in these href arguments. As soon as it finds that, it will put the file into the zip file. But if it does not find if there is an entry in there which is not presented on its source port, it will try to load the file from disk. And for the Canava image, that will be the case, because that is not in our input. It's not coming from the original zip file. So let's have a look at the code for that. And now it's getting a bit complicated, because we have to merge two branches of a pipeline, the one that changes the manifest and the one that creates the new zip file. All right. So here we are. The first thing we have is, as we saw in the beginning, we have the manifest and we change it and we add the Canava reference to it. We call this last step changed manifest, because what flows out of this p-insert is our changed manifest. Then we have to extract the zip file, as we did, multiple documents. We add a reference to the new logo to the main file, as we saw in our last step. But now we're going to call the parchive step with on the source port, which is implicitly connected, flow all the documents that come out of this for each. And it has a port manifest in which we connect to the result port of the changed manifest step, which is the result port of this insert step. So what comes out here flows in the manifest port here. After that, we store it in the build directory, the zip result.zip, as a zip result file. And you could have chosen to output it, to use this output on the result port of your pipeline, but since it's a binary file, well, it would be a bit difficult to see anything there. And as a small report, what I do is I ask, if you remember from my previous webinar, pstore has a second output port, which is called result URI, which tells you what file it actually stores its result to. And so what I do is I say, please get me the result of this result URI port. And there's no @ sign here, because it takes it from the step that is explicitly connected to this p identity, which is the pstore in this case. So the big question is, of course, does that actually work? Well, it won't surprise you that it does. And there we are. What we see here as the output is the result. The result of the store step, and it says, okay, I stored this step on this URI, and if we have a look at this URI, it should be there now. Yeah, there it is. And we look in the C result file, we see that it has now two images, the canava.jpg JPEG file, and the demo file indeed has the additional HTML markup inserted. So it will be a short webinar today because I'm already done, but I hope it was enlightening. So we have there are 3 steps. Let me just wrap up. But there are 3 steps in XProc for working with archives. The archive manifest step, which tells you what's inside. The unarchive, which an archive syncs from the manifest, from the archive, and you can add filters to actually get very precise what you want to unarchive. And the archive step, which creates a new archive. Archive manifest, you use archive manifest to finding out what's in an archive, and you need it for creating an archive. There is a default mode of parchive where you don't need a manifest. Please look it up in the specs. It just archives all the files it finds on its source port. And you can, and the parchive select the files for archiving using the base URI values, the document property base URI. And it takes it either from documents on the source port or documents on disk. All right. So that was it. It was short, but I hope you enjoyed it. I will stop screen sharing and pass control back to the Markup UK people.
Thank you very much, Erik. While we wait for any questions that attendees might have, we were wondering, would it be worth showing the different ports and settings in the actual XProc step declaration?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Sorry, for the in the actual spec.
Yeah.
The showing how the ports and the settings are declared there.
Yeah, sure.
For what you've been doing, if you have that to hand, please.
I have.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sharing again. Here's the parchive. Now let's start with parchive manifest because we started with that as well. This is the parchive manifest step. It has a source port on which it expects an archive. It has a result port on which it outputs an XML file, an archive manifest file. It has a format attribute in which you can tell it what kind of archive you are actually giving it, and the default is zip. And it has a parameters port, which is a map, and on which you can specify specific parameters for creating the archive manifest. Now, what parameters there are is archive type specific. For zip there is a definition of it, but you need to look it up probably in your processor's documentation because it's rather implementation defined what happens there. There's relative to option which you can use to influence the href creation, and there is, which might, at least I've used it already, the override content types, which is a pretty complex array, an XPath data of the type array, which you can use, for instance, if you have, I don't know, xconf files in your zip file, which are XML, and you want to have the archive manifest actually flag them as XML, you can use the override content types array to make that happen. The archive manifest itself, anyway, is also defined, of course, but it's defined under parchive. If you have a look at parchive, you'll see that it has, again, a source port for which documents flow in, a manifest port, an archive port, which will only be used if you want to merge archives. Whether merging archives actually works is implementation defined. The result port on which the created archive flows out, and some other stuff. There's a report port on which you can find several things what happened during the archiving, etc., etc. And there is then, of course, the unarchive step, source port, archive and result port, documents out, include filters, exclude filters, in which you can actually tell the unarchive what to filter, and again some other options we've already seen. All right.
That's great, thank you. So am I right in understanding that if you wanted some kind of higher level access to the zip, if you just wanted to do a straightforward, I want to replace a certain entry, you would have to write that step yourself?
Yes, there is an option to replace things, to change a zip file in the spec, but whether that will work is implementation defined, and I'm not sure whether it will work at this moment.
Okay, thanks a lot.
But and if you don't want, but you can always, of course, unzip it or unarchive it, do the change and archive it again.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
If your files are very big, that's probably not very handy.
Okay. So we have a question from Vincent. If it's okay with you, I'll unmute you. Okay, you should be able to pose your question now.
Hi,
Hello, Vincent.
thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, is it possible to rename files or change folder structures within an archive?
Well, the only way I can think of, so out of the top of my head, is that you unarchive it, change the manifest so it reflects the changes you want, and then archive it again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, unless anyone else has any questions, I think it only remains to say thank you once again, Erik. That was very clear, very helpful.
Yep.
We've just had a late breaking question. Philip asks, is it possible to work with zip files in XProc 1? I think it was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, but it was not as handy as it is in XProc 3.
Yeah, it seems a bit more civilized now.
Yeah.
Okay. In which case, I think we're getting some questions in the chat, actually.
Yeah.
Bear with me a second. Here we go. Colin, do you want to ask?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Hello, Erik.
Yeah.
You were talking about changing or updating files within an archive without having all the files either on disk or in import.
Yeah.
So I think one thing which confused me when I was basically trying to update individual files within a docx was the support of the different parameters. So update, create, freshen, and delete, which I did get working in the end, and Morgana did support. But I just wondered if it was worth going over some of those, or at least letting people know that those parameters do exist, and it's worth trying them in their XProc 3s.
Sure, we could go over it, but I would have to improvise as well, because that's an area I haven't I haven't done anything with yet. So
okay, so just pointing to page 236 of your book then.
Yeah, or to the specification.
Or to the specification, yeah.
Yeah, there's a handling of zip archives entry, and you can find the information about these parameters there.
Yeah, I think it could worth having some examples put on the web, because it is slightly confusing.
Okay. Well, if you think they're confusing and you have any suggestions on how to make it better, then just raise an issue on the XProc.
Okay, great.
Kit.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right then. Thank you again, Erik.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming. Please go to markupuk.org and register for the remaining sessions if you haven't already. Thank you and enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.